All right, you're live. Sage, you're muted.
Off to a good start. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sage Turner, Chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee, and I'd like to welcome you to this special meeting of the Community Development Block Grant Funding, or CDBG as you've heard us refer to it. All council members and applicants are participating virtually. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front of our city's website. You can also call in and listen live by phone by dialing 855-925-2801 and entering the meeting code 9791. For those of you joining us today, welcome. I'm going to go through and introduce all the council members and leadership with us today. Council and staff, as I say your name, please say a quick hello. Vice Mayor Smith.
Hello.
Councilwoman Mosley.
Good morning.
City Manager Deborah Campbell.
Hello.
Assistant City Manager Rachel Wood.
Good morning.
Community and Economic Development Director Nikki Reed.
Good morning.
And Interim Community Development Manager Jonathan Jones.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you, everyone. If you can, stay on mute until you need to speak. It'll help with background noise. Today we'll be hearing presentations from 10 different organizations applying for the CDBG funding for 12 different projects. Each presentation will be given 3 minutes, and applicants will have a timer in the virtual room. We've been testing a couple things. If you can't see it, let us know. During today's presentations, presenters will not take any questions from the committee members, and there will not be any public comment. We'll have Jonathan, I believe, do the introductions, and staff will just move us through each presentation. The presenters, if you could, just keep your microphone muted and your cameras off until it's your turn. And that will ensure that everybody that's presenting and engaged is on the screen live. And again, this is a special meeting for applicant presentations only. We will have another Housing and Community Development meeting on March 24th at 10 a.m. for the actual funding recommendations and allocations, as well as other HCD agenda items. Information about that meeting will be posted on our website 3 days before the meeting. And before we begin these presentations, Jonathan will provide us with a short overview. If there's not any questions, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I wanted to thank everybody who's joining us today, committee members, staff, as well as the applicants who will be sharing updates on sharing their projects, and wanted to give a quick summary of where we are in the process so far. So the city released the FY 22-23 CDBG and home funding application back in December, and community partners were invited to submit those applications by February 4th. The community development team has spent the last month going over those requests, checking for basic eligibility, project design, agency capacity, making sure that we're setting our partners up in the community to benefit low and moderate income folks, setting those projects up for success. So after the staff completed reviews, those evaluations were sent back to our partners, and they were asked to provide written responses and also invited to join us today to do short presentations. We received initially 19 requests totaling a little bit over $2 million. As we went through the review process, there were a number of projects, a handful of those that would not be moving forward. They had either compliance issues with regulations or unspent funds from previous years that really would have been challenging to move forward in the presentations and recommendations from staff. So today we'll hear those 3-minute presentations, and again, would love to have the committee members jot down any questions they might have that we could follow up with agencies. Similar to the ARPA process, I think we've borrowed a lot of good ideas from that this year, hoping to incorporate those into both our CDBG and home funding process. So if there aren't any questions about any of that, I will go ahead and move along to our first presenter. All right, so on the schedule this morning, we have On Track Financial Education and Counseling, and I believe that we have Celeste Collins with us this morning, sharing about their Housing and Financial Capabilities Program. So Celeste, if you are with us and would like to unmute your microphone and turn on your camera, that would be great.
I am with you, and my camera is unmuted. Good morning, council members and city staff. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Celeste Collins, the Director of On Track Financial Education and Counseling. Since March of 2020, we've been working remotely, and today I'm pleased to announce that beginning in April, thanks to working with United Way, our landlord, we will be offering in-person counseling appointments again. The work we did to develop in virtual services in response to the pandemic means that we can continue to offer both in-person and virtual options to our clients. Our goal with the CDBG funding is to serve 440 people through our financial capabilities programs. We combine education, individual counseling, learning with individual action plans so clients can move towards their goals. Our staff is available for supportive accountability when bumps in the road happen. The areas highlighted in our grant are credit, budgeting, and home buying. Credit, we have extensive knowledge about credit and credit scores and work with local financial institutions to help people rebuild credit. In budgeting, we have the foundational concepts, tools, and all kinds of cool stuff to help people create a plan that works for their family. And with home buying, we help people get ready with credit improvement and then saving to become home owners. We work with Habitat, MHO, Helpmate, LifeWorks, the Asheville Housing Authority's Family Self-Sufficiency Program, and we even now have a program funded through the county that helps child care workers build emergency savings with a match savings. Yes, we are a frequent flyer with CDBG funding, and we really appreciate the support. Our services are specifically cited in the consolidated plan as examples of programs that HUD is looking for in communities to show that there's comprehensive support for people in their quest for affordable housing. And speaking of affordable housing, I want to end with a quote, an excerpt from one of our client letters that we received. She said, "My dream life had been turned upside down. My marriage was ending and the power and water in my home were turned off. My husband had cleaned out our bank accounts without my knowledge and left. I had no money to pay our bills and I was out of work taking care of my newborn daughter. I remember the feeling now. I remember how hard it was to ask for help and how humiliating. My head was barely above water and I was about to lose my home. And then I found On Track, a lighthouse in the storm. Thanks to their wisdom and guidance, I managed to keep my home and start to rebuild my life from ground zero. On Track was so easy to access and navigate without judgment. I'm grateful that I found On Track and had the opportunity to work with such wonderful people. Thank you so much to Asheville City for the funding that helps support our services."
Thank you very much, Celeste. Next up on our presentation agenda, we have Kimberly Castano from Kids at Work, from Aspire Youth and Family, presenting on Kids at Work. Kimberly, if you are with us and want to go ahead and turn on your camera and mic, you can begin.
All right, thanks so much. So I'm here to represent the Kids at Work program proposal. We are a culinary arts and interpersonal skills training program that also provides employment assistance and job placement services. The Kids at Work program ranges from 16 to 20 weeks of services. The kids come once a week and have a 3-hour class where they learn better communication skills as well as technical skills in the culinary arts. The class is co-facilitated with an interpersonal and vocational coach, as well as a professional chef instructor. This class allows the youth to be able to have mentorship, as well as skill development for job-specific training and placement. And we are also addressing other priorities that were set by HUD, including obviously providing youth services because we're targeting to serve youth ages 15 to 18. And we also provide food security and healthy food availability. Obviously, in the program, the students eat at the program, and they also are able to take home additional food products for their households. We take a hands-on approach for the kids to learn the lessons. We do provide ServSafe certification, and that makes kids more marketable in the employment field. Youth that have this certification, 72% of hiring managers said they were more likely to hire individuals that have this certification than those that do not. In order to deliver this education, we take an age-appropriate approach to being able to do that. And so we break up the lessons across the time that they are in the program, so it's not a lot of information all at once. And we use very hands-on techniques for them to learn the materials. When the youth complete the program, our community coordinator works with the kids and with resources in the community to place them in different service sites and at work sites, and then they receive a supportive employment model, which means that our staff assist with that transition into the workplace and communicate with the managers there and just check on progress to help youth actually maintain that employment. We also provide transportation, which we know is a very common barrier for kids to be able to participate in different programs. So that transportation includes transportation to and from the program while they're going through the classes, as well as when they need to go to interviews and when they're first starting with their job experience. We encourage the managers to provide feedback to our youth, and if any obstacles start to come up, then our staff work with the placement site and with the youth to resolve those.
All right. Thank you, Kim. And next up, we have Amy Hobson from Caring for Children. She will be sharing about the Trinity Place Runaway and Homeless Youth Shelter. Amy, you ready to go?
Thank you, and good morning, council members and city staff. And thank you for this opportunity to share information about Trinity Place. We are the only 24/7 runaway and homeless emergency youth shelter in Western North Carolina. And we are luckily enough located here in Buncombe County. We provide immediate, no-wait entrance into our nationally recognized licensed shelter for when children have nowhere else to go. We serve approximately about 100 youth ages 7 through 17 every year. And we accept referrals from children just knocking on the door, from parents, law enforcement, DSS, mental health providers, hospitals, schools, and really all of our community partners. We are requesting less funding than in previous years, really with an eye on sharing community resources with our partners. So we have focused this year on other financial resources to cover the majority of costs for our full-time program manager. We also have revamped our staffing pattern to better meet the increased needs of the children that we support. We've really seen an increase, just a continued increase of mental health needs with the youth in the community. And we are seeing children enter Trinity Place with nowhere else to go more than ever, while they wait on a clinical assessment or treatment to begin. And because of that, youth are staying at Trinity Place, additional time, requiring additional staff support. We still continue to transport to all schools in Buncombe County and engage youth in volunteer, social justice, and other educational opportunities. Trinity Place provides 24-hour crisis line for all youth and parents, which provides community referrals. And this is not only for children staying at Trinity Place, but for all youth in our community and all families that are struggling. We are really focused on aftercare services to assist children transitioning back to home or an alternative living arrangement. And we do these follow-up supports every 3 months for up to 1 year post-discharge. While at Trinity Place, we have 3 evidence-based models that we focus on. Really want to just highlight that we have the only online evidence-based parenting class called Parenting Wisely for parents to take at with their own timeline to help them learn some healthy parenting parenting techniques that they can apply with their children. Once again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. This funding is crucial for us in order to maintain our federally required staff to use ratio, which is why we really do appreciate your consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Next on the agenda, we have two presentations from Helpmate, and we will be joined by April Burgess-Johnson. And the first presentation, I believe, will be for the housing case management for domestic violence survivors. And then we will reset the clock and give April time to also talk about the emergency shelter request. April?
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and council members for the opportunity to be here with you this morning. I'm April Burgess-Johnson. I am the Executive Director for Helpmate, and I'm here because domestic violence is a leading cause of homelessness for women and children. And I strongly believe that our community cannot effectively have a strategy that addresses homelessness without also addressing domestic violence. Helpmate has provided safety, shelter, and support to domestic violence survivors for more than 45 years in Buncombe County. This project will serve 16 families who are at 50% or less of the area median income, primarily via home funding, including carryover funding from the current fiscal year. Survivors who are served through our housing case management program are generally at a high risk of lethal violence from their abusive partners. There's also an important equity component to Helpmate's work. 34% of people served in all of Helpmate's programs are BIPOC folks, and 4% are LGBTQ, a rate which is nearly quadruple the statewide average. Housing case managers assist survivors with housing searches, with negotiating with landlords with whom we preserve and maintain relationships. We provide inspections to housing units, assist with the lease-up process, help survivors gain what they need to move in, and provide ongoing case management to help preserve housing placements. We have a 100% 6-month retention rate. We include partnerships with job training and placement services so that survivors and their families can rebuild economically and build a more stable and secure future. This program is part of a larger housing program through which Helpmate manages home, continuum of care, ESG, and Department of Justice funds to ensure that we have the best match for the survivors that we're serving. Helpmate's a well-managed organization. We have more than 40 grant programs that we manage annually, and we submit regularly to site visits and desk monitoring, and we've experienced no findings and no recommendations. Last fall, we submitted to a week-long HUD audit, which also yielded no findings and no recommendations. And just a note, we received CDBG funds last year, but we're not yet under contract with those funds. We did receive a draft contract from city staff last week. We've submitted some questions in response to that contract, and so we're waiting to finish up that process alongside staff. The contract in the current year would be Helpmate's first home contract with CDBG staffing funding to manage it. So in future years, we won't experience these delays if funds are awarded because we'll be able to use continuing home funds that are managed by those CDBG funded case managers. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present on this program. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, April. And I guess we'll shift to the emergency shelter request and go ahead and let you share about that one as well.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'll put on my second hat for the day. So Helpmate's Emergency Shelter is a safe haven for people who are homeless due to abuse in their homes. 91% of the people who come through our emergency shelter are in the extreme risk category, which is the highest possible category of risk for domestic violence homicide. Many of the people coming to our shelter flee with absolutely nothing but the clothes on their back and the children on their hips. We support survivors to either regain access to their belongings or to really rebuild from scratch. This often involves working with Helpmate's court advocacy program and often physical legal services to file for relief through both the civil and criminal court systems. Helpmate Shelter is complemented by supportive services that are located on site, including individual and group counseling, court advocacy programming, a 24-hour emergency hotline, and case management services, which also include that specialized housing case management and specialized services that are focused on the needs of children exposed to domestic violence. We have a partnership with the Duke Center for Child and Family Health that really help us address the needs of children exposed to domestic violence. We foster a low barrier environment in which we partner with mental health and substance use organizations as needed for concurrent services. And we're also well integrated with other community services, such as the lethality assessment protocol, which we implement alongside APD and other local law enforcement, in which law enforcement officers screen for lethality risk for domestic violence victims and place them on the phone with Helpmates Hotline right there from the crime scene. We're partnering an on-site organization at the Buncombe County Family Justice Center, which co-locates multiple types of victim services into one safe location. And we hold more than 30 memorandum of understanding with partnering organizations because, like Maya Angelou said, we believe that to go far, you must go together. The equity issue is even more stark in our emergency shelter, with a resounding 41% of shelter residents identifying as people of color. There's no question that people of color in our community bear higher burdens of violence. We're also one of the very limited resources for emergency shelter for trans and non-binary people in our community, which is important since nearly half of trans people experience domestic violence at some point in their lives. This program will serve 215 people from 150 families each year, with another 300 to 400, depending on which year you look at, who are referred to other shelters, generally domestic violence shelters in surrounding counties. We're in the beginning phase of constructing a bigger facility to more adequately meet this need. 75% of the survivors that we serve exit to known safe locations. There's no question that shelter saves lives. Thank you.
Thank you, April. So I skipped ahead a little bit on our schedule and managed to pass Elida Homes in the process. And so I want, first of all, thank Christina Harris and Jenna Miller for keeping this process running behind the scenes, but also for keeping me in line on our procedures. So for Elida Homes, we have Sasha Metcalf, who will be sharing about the Elida Transitional Housing Services Program. Sasha? Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Hello, City Council. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. I am, as you said, Sasha Metcalf. I am the filling-in director at the moment while our current director is on sabbatical. ESTA is a program under Elida Homes. We've been serving the 16 to 25-year-olds in our area with workforce development and life skills. We also offer transitional housing. The focus age group there is 18 to 25. With the transitional housing, we offer intensive case management in addition to our life skills and workforce development classes. Our population and client needs are unique and specific. We have seen a marked, actually 30% increase in the 18 to 19-year-olds in our area who meet the the Category 1 homeless definition. They are literally homeless and sleeping in tents. This population is also unique in that they have no credit, they have no employment history, they have no rental history, so they present very poorly on housing applications. We did experiment with a housing services program this year, and we did have some success, but not the success we had hoped for. What we did learn was that our clients need additional time to stabilize transitional housing, and during that stabilization, focus on building credit, building tenancy skills, building their life skills. And they do that by working intensively with a dedicated case manager. The funding we're requesting would pay half the salary of that dedicated case manager, who would work directly with the clients in transitional housing for a period of 12 to 18 months. And the goal would be to have them establish some of those markers that would make independent housing more likely for them. We've seen a huge effect from the pandemic on this population. I think that's the increase in the number that are category 1, literally homeless. So we're going back to our roots and focusing on what we do well, and that is supporting this vulnerable population at this transitional time in their lives, going from teenagers to young adults, and young adults that are able to maintain and sustain their independent housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Next on the list, I believe, we have Homeward Bound, and Cindy McMahon will be sharing about AHOPE coordinated entry, and then following that with their CDBG housing services request. So Cindy, if you would like to begin speaking about AHOPE.
Thank you. I'm going to start with the housing management housing services request. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Homeward Bound's request for CDBG funding to support permanent housing services. I'm Cindy McMahon, the long-term interim executive director of Homeward Bound. The metaphor that explains Homeward Bound's program model is a home. Homeless services make up the front porch of the house. People experiencing homelessness first connect with Homeward Bound through AHOPE and outreach so that we can invite them inside. Once inside the house, we find rapid rehousing and veterans programming on the first floor, where folks can get housed quickly and become self-sufficient. Upstairs is permanent supportive housing, the services for those who not only need rental assistance, but also wraparound services to help them stay housed. The back porch is the housing specialist team, working with landlords to make sure we have homes for those referred to our housing programs. We received a report from the city indicating that we have approximately $19,000 remaining in last year's CDBG funding for this program. We requested that reimbursement in January for services previously delivered and received feedback yesterday about additional documentation needed. Despite the reimbursement schedule, case management for 15 clients is ongoing. This request is for one case manager with permanent supportive housing, the upstairs programs, and half of a housing specialist on the housing team. This second person is also dedicated to permanent supportive housing, but on the landlord side, the back porch. These two positions work together to help people who have been chronically homeless achieve housing stability. The PSH case manager, in addition to making sure that clients have rental assistance, connects folks with other important providers, including mental health services and peer support for substance use disorder. Our team helps solve many problems for those who are not used to living indoors, including finding meaningful daily activities, helping with neighbor issues, guest management, and other social supports. It is these supports that lead to Homeward Bound's 89% success rate with helping folks to stay housed once they get there. These supports, both inside the metaphorical house and the behind-the-scenes work with the landlords, keep our clients housed and off the street. There are clear economic benefits in addition to the human ones. People experiencing chronic homelessness are highly vulnerable and medically fragile. Their overuse of public services such as the ER, ambulances, and law enforcement costs on average $30,000 to $50,000 per year. The estimated cost of permanent supportive housing is less than $14,000 per person per year, 70% less than what it costs for this vulnerable population to live on the streets. Permanent supportive housing is the sustainable solution to the challenges of homelessness in Asheville. We appreciate your partnership and this funding, and in our shared goal of preventing and ending homelessness in the hometown that we love so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And if you'll give us a second to reset our clock, you can proceed with AHOPE.
Thank you. So this is AHOPE coordinated entry. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak, this time for funding to support coordinated entry at our AHOPE Day Center. I'd like to introduce Marcus Laws, our new Homeless Services Director. Marcus was most recently the Homeless Services Coordinator for the City of West Palm Beach. He has extensive frontline and leadership experience working in homeless services before that, including in Asheville. As I mentioned earlier, A-HOPE is the first step to permanent housing for people who are currently living on the street. The services of A-HOPE get folks in the door: mail, coffee, warmth, showers, lockers, and more. But it is coordinated entry that puts them on the path to permanent housing. This request will support one of our 2 full-time coordinated entry intake case managers. This case manager not only does the paperwork to get people experiencing homelessness onto the by name list, the process also involves hearing folks' vulnerable stories of trauma and walking the path of building trust so we can help get them into housing. This case manager helps determine how long housing support is needed. Could this client quickly reconnect with family or other supports? Might rapid rehousing be successful with its shorter term services? Or is this someone who has experienced chronic homelessness and needs permanent supportive housing? The HUD required coordinated entry process helps our community prioritize the most vulnerable people for housing first. This role is pivotal in making the referrals to our 2 permanent supportive housing facilities coming online at the former Days Inn and the Ramada Inn property. Before I wrap up, I also want to acknowledge the changes that we've been facing at A-HOPE, the challenges that we've been facing at A-HOPE, and the steps Homeward Bound is taking to address them. With increasing numbers of people experiencing homelessness and challenges with mental health, substance use disorder, personal violence, and trauma, the neighbors have expressed concerns about behaviors of individuals on and around North Ann Street. In order to address these concerns, Homeward Bound has taken a number of recent steps, including adding lighting and a pilot security program nights and weekends. We're closely monitoring those results, providing training and strengthening staff protocols, painting over graffiti, adding additional no trespassing signage, and coordinating with APD on a weekly basis. I have met individually with a number of A-HOPE neighbors in recent weeks to hear their concerns and suggestions, and will continue to do so. Marcus has joined the team fully briefed and ready to carry the solution focus forward. I want to assure you that we are taking this situation seriously and will continue to do so. For those living on the streets, coordinated entry is the path to permanent housing. And for the community at large, permanent housing is the solution to the challenges we all face with homelessness in our city. Thank you again for considering our request to continue this HUD-required service and for all you do to develop our strong Asheville community.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Next up, we have Mountain Biz Capital, known as Mountain Biz Works, and Matt Raker will be sharing about the expanded access to small business training, coaching, and capital. Take it away, Matt.
Thank you, Jonathan, and greetings, council members and staff. Matt Raker, Executive Director of Mountain Biz Works. Asheville, we've seen, really impressive economic growth over the past decade, 2 decades. And a lot of this has been driven by small businesses, locally owned small businesses in our community. We've recently gone back and looked, and actually a good number of these were started by founders that come from a low-income background that got their start from the CDBG program. That really helped them get their business plan in order, get the basics together so they could start confidently in their business. And we think it's just vitally important that our economy and our city continues to provide inclusive pathways to economic mobility and to reduce disparities. That's exactly what this project does. It's a proven approach that expands access to high quality business coaching classes and loan readiness support for low income aspiring and existing entrepreneurs. So this includes our Foundations Business Planning course, Financial Tools course, the Catalyst cohorts, our one-on-one business coaching with successful local business owners, and our Spanish language business programs. It prepares entrepreneurs to be ready for capital, which is so key to getting started and growing, including getting prepared for the Mountain Community Capital Fund program. And then also provides technical assistance post-funding to really help those entrepreneurs ensure their success after they've received the funding as well. We've really worked very closely with our Opportunity Asheville partners and other area resources in being able to coordinate services and be efficient and reduce kind of duplication in the services across our community. In total, the current request will result in 35 businesses started or expanded and at least 55 jobs created and retained for LMI individuals in Asheville. We'll just share that, right now, we really see these services being, in greater need than ever. For one, we're really recovering from the pandemic, which means we're managing both pockets of ongoing distress for certain types of businesses that were highly impacted, as well as opportunities. So really on both fronts there. And then we know that in each of the last 2 years in North Carolina, we've had record rates of new business formation. And we're definitely seeing this here at Mount Bismarck, which is, it's encouraging. So, and we're seeing an incredibly diverse mix of founders as well. So hopeful for the future. So we greatly appreciate the city's support of inclusive opportunity through entrepreneurship, and be happy to share anything more about, the project or provided if additional information to consider this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next up, we have Partners Unlimited, and I believe we have Sally Graves with us this morning to talk about their academic enhancement program.
Well, good morning. I hope you can hear me because I can hear all of you. So let me start out with the one sentence that you had on your email. It said, the presentations are not mandatory in order to receive funding. Thank you for saying that, because I want to give you some history, some successes, and some passion for our program. This program was started by Anderson Davis. He woke up one morning or several mornings, I don't know. But he said he wanted to start something for our at-risk youth. So he started selling hot dogs, and that's how this program got started in 1997. Anderson had a lived experience as far as being at risk. His family, his socioeconomic setting, and his financial situation. I too had a passion. My father could not read. My mother went to the 8th grade, but she was smarter than me. When I went to school, we had no indoor plumbing. We lived in a neighborhood full of love, and I wanted to be a teacher. And that's how I started out, and that was my goal. But I had a mother that loved us, encouraged us, and pushed us. We have at-risk kids out there today. The parents are young, the children are lost. So if we can teach them how to fish, they will eat forever, because ignorance is expensive. Based on society, you say if you have a home, you have a job, you have benefits, you're gonna make it. But how can our kids have those things if they haven't taken the first step to get those things? And that's education. We set our program up based on at-risk children that don't want to go to school and need a little encouragement. So dropout prevention probably is based on several things: academic failure while they're in school, school behavior, low attendance, failure to be promoted as far as middle school, family commitment to education, placement in foster care, juvenile justice system, or unstable home environments. Family may be incarcerated, been in jail. They don't desire what other children need to push them forward. We have some success stories. We have at-risk kids out there in this world, positive, doing things that they never thought they could do before. Thank you for this moment of passion.
Thank you very much, Sally. Next up, we have Pisgah Legal Services, and Robin Merrill will be speaking about the homelessness prevention program.
Good morning, everyone. Well, that's a tough act to follow, but I'm gonna try my best. I wanted to say thank you to the council members and to the city staff. You have long partnered with us on these funds for our homelessness prevention project. And it's actually really the only kind of dedicated funding we receive for services in the city of Asheville for this project. And I also wanted to say thank you to the staff. There was a little hiccup with our application this year, but as soon as they found out about that, they fixed it, and it's been a seamless process for us. And I greatly appreciate that. I wanted to say thank you for our work with you on the CDBG CV financial assistance. That has greatly enhanced what we've been able to do to help families and individuals avoid eviction over the past year. And it's made a big difference. Today, we're asking for $60,000 to meet 3 goals. One is to prevent or delay evictions and foreclosures. Second is to help people either obtain or maintain a housing subsidy. People who get those need them, and they need to keep them. And the third is to work on improving the quality of housing for those who may need repairs or have found their utilities terminated due to an action of the landlord. So while we've been doing this for a long time, this past year has been very different. We started out with an eviction moratorium that ended. We're seeing the steady increase of evictions back to pre-pandemic levels, but we're also seeing an even tighter rental market, which we didn't think that could happen, and yet it has. And this incredible increase in rental costs has been, it's disastrous. It's just disastrous. And I'm greatly concerned for the people who rent in this market and for people who are low income. And it makes preventing their evictions all the more important than it ever was before. It also makes preserving their subsidies all the more important than they were before. I want to tell you a story of a 69-year-old African-American man who lives in an affordable apartment downtown with only his Social Security disability. He walks with a walker. And when he got eviction papers from his landlord, he walked to our office to get help on that walker. And that was one of those things that just made me vow that this man wasn't going to get evicted. And I only have 10 seconds left, but it was a long, hard fight, and he didn't get evicted. He's still in that apartment, still living there, still on his walker, but he's okay. And it was because of the work that you fund us to do at Pisgah Legal. So thank you.
Thank you, Robin. And finally, we have the Spark Foundation, and we'll be joined by Tiffany Bell and sharing on the Domestic Violence Intervention Program.
Yes. Good morning. I am Tiffany Bell, and I oversee the 26-week program for domestic violence offenders here in Buncombe County that is certified by the state to address their abusive behaviors. The participants in our domestic violence program are residents like any living in the city limits, facing the same challenges. However, they also have additional factors that exacerbate these conditions, such as generational poverty and trauma. Many have criminal records, which make obtaining already scarce housing almost impossible, as well as making it more difficult to obtain stable and gainful employment. In fact, 25% of Spark's DVIP participants has unemployment identified as a risk factor. As our program demographics also overlap with other groups prioritized by CDBG, our program already receives CDBG funding. During the last calendar year, 36% of our participants were from Asheville City, 43% of clients identified as low income, and another 20% as extremely low income. In these groups, 25% identified racially as Black or multiracial, and 25% identified ethnically as Hispanic. Additionally, as April mentioned, domestic is a deadly issue that faces our community. At Spark, we know that offender services are a crucial part of domestic violence prevention. It is a vital way to prevent new victims from being created by people that are known to cause harm and to hold them accountable for their actions. Through the testimony of the over 400 participants that we have served, Spark recognizes both unemployment as trauma as to the complex factors that influence domestic violence. We address employment through providing resources and link participants to inclusive hiring partners, a resource for county residents with employment barriers to get linked to careers in high demand industries. Trauma is also a core issue for this population, and because of this, we focus training for staffs on trauma, develop trauma-informed policies, and integrate them into our work with participants. We continue to identify best practices regarding trauma-informed offender services to further improve our program, and we are aware of the effectiveness of EMDR as an individual method for treating trauma and are strategizing how best to enhance our service with this model. To achieve these goals, we seek the continued financial support of CDBG for $25,000. And I would also like to thank CDBG and the City Council for their time and consideration. And would also like to note that in a recent class, we had 5 of our 8 participants identify trauma as experiencing domestic violence as children, which shows the need to address this issue with this population. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. And with that, we have, I believe, gone through the entire list of presentations on our schedule today. And from the staff side of things for the CDBG process, we will be working over the next couple of days to update application summaries and evaluations based on the written responses that we've received from partners, and begin preparing funding recommendations that will be presented to HCD next Thursday at the next scheduled meeting on March 24th. Additionally, we have the Home Consortium presentations that are on schedule for this afternoon, and we'll be hearing a similar number of presentations and be making recommendations for those home funding awards next week as well. And if there are any other questions, glad to take those, but happy to turn it back over to Councilwoman Turner.
Thank you. And thank you to all the applicants for making the time today to present your wonderful projects. We appreciate you. I don't think we're going to do any Q&A with the applicants, but Jonathan has expressed that we will be voting on these items and allocation just a week away on the 24th. City Council members, if as a reminder, collect all your questions related to these applications, get them to Jonathan as soon as possible. And I believe that's it. Any other questions or comments from fellow councilwomen before we adjourn? Okay, thank you everyone for making the time today. We appreciate you, and we'll be in touch and see you on the 24th. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.